My name is Bongi Ntsoelengoe, and I have the privilege of hosting this webinar today. The title of our webinar is Reimagining Mining and the Role of Research and Innovation in this journey. The performance of South African mining industry has been on a decline for several years now, with the GDP contribution declining from 20% in the 1980s to below 6% in the past year. This decline has been due to several factors, amongst others, weak global economic conditions, volatile commodity prices, high production costs, which can be attributed to the declining grades, deeper levels of mining, the necessary improvements in safety and health conditions. The adoption of modernization and innovation solutions has been experienced as a credible solution to enable operations to improve their conditions through creating safer working environments, increasing their productivity and efficiencies, which we all know drives down the necessary costs, including maximizing resource utilization. But on the other hand, financial restrictions have forced companies to cut their capital budget, freezing investment in research and technology innovation, which is required and is fundamental in driving adoption of appropriate solutions across our mining value chain. Which then leads us to the topic of this discussion today. To unpack all of these and to answer the difficult questions, we have our panelists, and I'd like to welcome our panelists on the webinar, starting with Sihle Mdluli. Sihle is currently a director and director of strategy and corporate services at Bushveld Minerals. Prior to joining Bushveld, Sihle was a director and operations transformational leader at Deloitte Africa. She also worked for De Beers as a metallurgical engineer responsible for plant operations. The second panelist is Sitse Vanavoda. Sitse is currently the Senior Executive for Modernization and Safety at the Minerals Council, and his purpose remains to help facilitate a people-centric modernization in the mining industry. He has previously worked for a national nuclear regulator where he was instrumental in establishing regulatory framework for radiation protection in mining. He also worked for Xstrata, where he was responsible for safety, health, environment, and quality. Our last panelist is Bernard Swanepoel. I'm sure he doesn't need any introduction, but Bernard is a mining engineer. He's a business owner. He holds a directorship of several companies in the mining industry and in the chemical industry. And these companies have their operational footprint in South Africa and globally. He was also the CEO, former CEO of Harmony Gold until 2007. He's also chairing a well-known South African mining industry conferences, which includes the Joburg Indaba, which is a very prestigious conference, mining conference, and he's a partner at Thinkspiration. Very interesting, I learned recently that Bernard is also a former CSIR employee. So welcome to all our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
My first round of question is around the role of research and innovation and how do we use this vehicle to then reimagine mining? And secondly, my question to you is how then do we adequately position the country to develop and deploy modernized solutions? So I'll pose my first question to Sitse.
Thank you, Bongi, and good afternoon to the viewers. To touch lives through innovation, we need mining. There are 39 elements in technologies for a low carbon economy, such as solar panels, wind turbines, or electric vehicles. And all 39 these elements are either mined or byproducts of mining. Also, if you look at the mobile phones that we all use, 28 of the 29 elements used in the phones need mining. And 14 of these elements have a recycle rate of less than 1%, making mining essential. Now, just like innovation needs mining, South African mining also needs innovation to touch more lives for longer. Over the last decade, our multi-factor productivity in South African mining has fallen by 7.6%. At the same time, mining cost inflation was 2 to 3% higher annually than general inflation, leading to about 2/3 of our output being on the upper half of the global mining cost curve. This is not sustainable. Mining output also declined by 10% over this period, and mineral sales contracted by 11%. Now, in addition to all these economic factors, many of the world's largest investors, such as BlackRock and the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, have increased their focus on environmental, social, and governance issues. And we now have seen numerous examples of how tailings dam failures, corruption charges, or the destruction of heritage sites have impacted on companies' reputations, their social license to operate, as well as their share performance. Firms that fail to address on these issues will increasingly be distanced from the best talent. They will find it harder to access capital, and this will affect their global competitiveness. So we have two challenges that we face. The one is we need to innovate South African mining, and at the same time we need to do this in a way that's socially just and also ecologically sustainable. There's no question that we need to invest more in innovation. But innovation in a South African context, with the high unemployment, poverty and inequality levels, must be what we call people-centric and 4IR technology enabled, rather than the typical thinking around this to be technology-centric. And as we change the relationship between people, data, equipment, and material, we will improve our global competitiveness and thereby touch more lives for longer. If I can just give you a few examples of how these things can work in practice. The use of drones with machine learning can improve exploration accuracy, and in one case, 90% more deposits were identified by a drone than by human experts. The same if we embed Internet of Things devices inside our mining equipment to provide real-time use insights, we can improve efficiency. At one mining company, they found they could get a 20% improvement in draw rates. And then if we combined artificial intelligence, machine learning, and visual recognition, it enables us to sift through enormous volumes of data. Another mining company was able to reduce their project change cost by 500 million rand a year by combining data from about 2,000 different projects and over 100 SAP tables. All this new and newly analyzed data can create value if it reaches the decision makers, whether the decision maker is the CEO or a driller, in a way that they can quickly and effectively use this information. And the advantage of all these innovations is that it creates new, better paid, safer, healthier, and more fulfilling jobs. And this whole strategy of reimagining mining is about turning technology into an ally who helps people rather than a threat to replace them. Thank you, Bongi.
Thank you very much, Sitze, for that insightful view in terms of, what our global competitiveness is and how then do we become more people-centric. So turning my question to Bernard, the country, as a country, are we adequately positioned? I'm now talking around, our institutional capacity to actually address modernization. And what is that roadmap, holistic roadmap, to ensure that we get there?
I don't think we are. And I think it is the arrogance of a country that used to be the de facto leader in the world of mining. And in the 40 or 50 years where we slipped down the rankings, we were not paying attention. So there's no doubt that there was a time when this country produced technology, produced equipment, produced people skills that was world class. And we had all the world's best minds, so it was sort of inevitable. But I think we are living on a past record which truly no longer exists. Obviously, in that time, quite correctly, our country was busy with even more important things. We had to become a democracy, we had to undo some of the sort of structures of the past. And so as much as we can explain how we got to where we are today, I think we have to ask ourselves, but instead of looking backwards, what would looking forward look like? We can talk about the CSIR, 75 years. And yet in the last year, I could not think of a single reason as a mining industry player why I would pick up the phone and ask the CSIR to help me. Clearly, that's not right. That can't be how we want to position any institution, especially ones with deep knowledge like the CSIR. So if we are self-critical, we've let the ball drop. If we are optimistic, as miners typically are, so I do think we need to actually start with a national agenda. And one of these national agendas are being developed as we speak. For the first time since I've been in the industry, we can have a national exploration plan. How can a country with our natural endowment not have that? Well, arrogance. You know, I mean, we just didn't need it because people came here until they didn't come here anymore. And so if we take these national initiatives like a national exploration plan and we unpack that and we focus on the technologies and the research and the commercialization of previous technologies that will enhance this plan, I think we will achieve quite a lot. I tried to share with the panelists in a pre-meeting how complex this space is. Not complex, how fragmented. It is man-made complexity. I did say man-made, not woman-made. It is man-made complexity. We have fragmented everything in this country to the point where we achieve very little other than perhaps job creation. I mean, soft jobs, jobs that do not contribute to our economy. So as a co-owner of a manganese refining business, we try to map out the technology space from a manganese perspective. And there are over 100 players, some of them international, some of them critical institutions like the Minerals Council, some of them OEMs, but this is unsustainable. So Bongi, the optimist in me says we sit with all the ingredients to become a world leader in the space. And the realist in me says, but we have to do things differently. We can't repeat the last 40 years and expect a different outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. And I know that you speak from a position of, love for not only the organization, but for the country. When you say that we need a deliberate plan that will ensure successful implementation. And that we need to then focus on it to ensure that we reposition ourselves to claim the mineral endowment that's there. Thank you. Then to turn to Sihle, given your wealth of experience with modernization and being at Bushveld Minerals as a junior mining company, what is your view on, the roadmap that is required to actually turn things around and to see us modernizing and developing research, appropriate research for the industry?
Thank you, Bongi. And I really like what Bernard said about the national agenda and the national plan. And I think I'll just touch a little bit on that. And I want to quote CITES organization, Minerals Council, when they talk about modernization. modernization, that it's not just about mechanization, but it's about transforming the industry so that it's fit for the future. I think leveraging on what Bernard has said, that we have lots of glory years behind us, but how do we position this industry so that in 30 years' time, we can say we have adequately passed on the baton to the next generation, so that we are not the generation that brings this industry to its knees. And I think in that regard, there's more that needs to be done in not only addressing the challenges that we have today, and stabilizing the mining cluster. And I speak about the mining cluster because I speak about the upstream linkages to capital equipment, the downstream linkages to beneficiation, so that the work that we do positions the industry for the future. And if you look at where the future is going, there's a lot. I mean, I think we in South Africa or in the world, we are living in a once in a lifetime opportunity where there's a transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And this is not just a South African phenomenon, but it's happening across the world. And I think with COVID, people have tasted cleaner air, and I think the migration is going to be even faster post-COVID. And I think the mineral endowment that Sitsu spoke about presents a great opportunity for this country. I mean, if you look at the number of minerals we have largest and second largest mineral deposits across many very important minerals. And with the migration to cleaner energy, there is an opportunity for those minerals to play a more meaningful role. I mean, you look at titanium in solar, you look at nickel in nuclear, et cetera, et cetera. I can name a number of them. And not only in electricity generation, but also in energy storage. You look at the work that PGMs are doing in hydrogen. You look at the work that the organization that I'm in Bushveld Minerals, the work that we do in vanadium. So I think the opportunity is there for South Africa to play a meaningful role in the energy transition. And not only for South Africa, but even look at exports. I mean, now we even have an Africa continental trade agreement that's currently in place that enables us to develop technologies here and exporting them to other parts of Africa. And I think this is, even inside South Africa, if you look at the IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan, it gives a migration of not just focusing on coal, but on a broader energy mix. So even there in South Africa, and you look at what Eskom is doing now with the World Bank in the Energy Factory Program, there's an opportunity there for South Africa. The RIP Round 5 is coming. Even now, municipalities can purchase electricity directly from the producers. I think, Bongi, the time is now for South Africa to put what Bernard has referred to as a national agenda that not only focuses on the here and now, but that focuses on positioning this industry for the future and making sure that we take advantage of the linkages both upstream and downstream.
Thank you for that, Sihle. And that gives a positive outlook for us to, from doing an introspection, looking at what are the capabilities that we have, and looking at the national agenda. How then do we put plans in place, deliberate effort for us to change and make a significant contribution to our economy. So as we are turning 75 years, the CSIR is growing up. I would like to ask each of you to give us a golden nugget, if I can put it at that, as to how do we as an organization contribute towards supporting the mining industry and to achieving the cause that we have spoken now about, and to realizing the opportunities that are there.
Maybe let me just start by saying happy birthday to the CSIR. Well done on your past 75 years. I must say I was quite encouraged, Bongi, when I attended the session where the CEO was going through the new strategy for the CSIR. where he outlined the different clusters. And I spoke to you about that in excitement, you know, especially in mining, where you look at future production. In the same cluster, there is manufacturing and defense and security. So I was like, this is a great opportunity for if the CSIR really works according to the strategy that they've put in place. Because I think that if we look at things from a cluster point of view, we are able to put research and innovation that can aid the development of vertically integrated opportunities that maximizes South Africa's share, even in the energy storage value chain that I spoke about. And also, I wanted to touch a little bit in terms of the linkages to downstream. I think we have a lot in South Africa, a lot of metallurgical infrastructure sits and Bernard would know from the work that was done back in the days with Comro and the work that CSIR did. There is a lot of infrastructure that is there that I think can be even further utilized and reinvigorate research and development platforms that can be now utilized to look at the trends in industry and look at how do we position this industry for the future. And I like, based on the work that we did at the Mining Pakisa, what Sisi and the team have done with the mining precinct, because what it does, it also addresses some of the future issues by looking at those reefs that we couldn't mine in the past and look at how we can do that and mine them safely and efficiently going forward. And I think there's another point, Bongi, that touches on collaboration. And I think the first stakeholder for collaboration is definitely the industry itself. If you read, I'm sure you have read the Comro case study in terms of how things fell apart. I think that keeping the hand on the pulse in terms of where the industry is and what the clients want is one of the things that I think the CSIR must continuously focus on, because for the industry to move forward, there has to be that collaboration with the mining players. And not only the mining players, for us to address what Bernard spoke about, the national agenda, there has to be a lot of collaboration with government as well, because some of the things must be funded by government to ensure that technologies that are not only client or specific sector focused are put into place. So I think that collaboration with government and universities moving the industry forward is quite key. And there's a last part that I want to talk to that speaks to I would say the missing middle. Guys like where I am, Bushveld Minerals, where there is a lot. If you go to the DMRE, for example, there's a lot of work that is done for junior miners. There's a lot of work that the mining precinct, for example, does with major conglomerates. But if you look at what is currently happening in the country with a lot of large conglomerates leaving the country, the guys that are likely going to take the industry forward are the mid-sized type of organizations like ours, where I believe there isn't a lot of focus that is put in terms of either partnering with them or understanding the level of innovation and the lot of entrepreneurship that sits in those organizations that I believe is quite central in moving the industry forward. So I think there is that, and I would say missing middle, for lack of a better word, that I think the CSIR will do best to engage with in terms of where the industry is going, over and above just engaging with the large conglomerates. Thank you, Bongi.
Thank you for that, Sihle. I think those are definitely golden nuggets that we'll build upon as we drive the strategy for the mining cluster in building a CSIR for mining strategy. Bernard, can we come back to you?
I would love to contribute to this topic, but on a sort of a more, I don't know, not as scientific a level as your two previous panelists. I mean, when you talk to a company in a difficult situation with its employees, when you talk to a couple in a difficult situation in their relationship, it is the same advice. Talk to us and listen to us. You know? So you need to re-establish proper linkages to the mining industry. And I say the mining industry, not mining companies only. If I take a view on the South African mining industry going forward, as per Cecil's point about multinationals leaving, you know, to the extent that these big companies have got agendas beyond South Africa, their R&D will follow that, etc. But the linkage that we should as an industry tap into is that of the original equipment manufacturers. They spend much more money on research than what you can ever spend, or even what we as a national budget can ever afford. But as a country, we are ambitious. We've got a national agenda, and I'm in support of that. But then it's multi-layered. Then we want to achieve too many things. So if we go to the Mandela Mining Precinct, we're doing some really great work, but we immediately create an entity for South African manufacturers to the exclusion of international manufacturers. Now, the South African manufacturers' budget is R1, and the international manufacturer's budget is $1 million, to just give you a scale size. So I think we need to have a national plan, but we need to be single-mindedly focused that we want to impact on our industry going forward. I think as a national agenda, we should focus on exploration and exploration technology. I think as an industry, and that's where the CSIR comes in, you should have strong relationships with all of the people in the space already, especially those who are in the space where it can be rolled out to the industry. There's always a customization job. So original equipment manufacturers manufacture equipment and implement technology for the types of mines you find in the rest of the world. And often there's a uniqueness to South African mines. Just think deep level platinum mining, for example. Nobody else does that. And so that is where I think we as a country can regain a competitive advantage, and you as the CSIR can regain a credibility as an organization that makes a difference that nobody else could have made. But let's use other people's money. Let's use the money that is available. Let's not start off with agendas to also make this about localization or any other thing. All of those things are important, but you as the CSIR can't be the driver of that. I don't even think our national plan should be that ambitious. Thank you, Bongi.
Thank you, Bernard. I expected you to be honest, and definitely that's what we're getting, being brutally honest. So thank you very much for that. I think we've said a lot, and I do appreciate, the level of detail that the panelists have shared with us in our journey moving forward. Because for us to be in existence for the next 75 years, even more than 75 years, it's important that we reposition ourselves, especially with mining contributing significantly to the economy of this country. It's important that we reposition ourselves, and I like what all the panelists said when you said we need to gain credibility. How do we take it from the start? So I will request that starting with Sihle, that we have a word of closing before we open to questions.
Thank you, Bongi. I was looking for my unmute button. I think I've found this discussion quite insightful. So thank you for having me. But I think just in closing, and I would like to agree with some of the comments that Bernard made, and I would say some for a reason. In terms of, I think there is a lot that we can do as a country, but I think that there's a lot that we can do if we tap into the ecosystem that exists. The ecosystem that exists in locally and the ecosystem that exists internationally. If you look at the work that's done on, for example, the green hydrogen economy, there are partnerships that exist between South Africa, Africa and Germany. And I think it's but one example of what Bernard is talking about, where we leverage the international markets to advance what we are doing here. And also, if you look at, maybe touching on the previous point on what the CSIR can do, if you look at the commercialization of some of the technologies, I was quite saddened by a chat I had with somebody at the DTI, where they said they have only commercialized 2 projects to date when it comes to mining. And one was about PGM recycling. I can't remember what the other one was about. And it was not the 2 passed from the lot, but only 2 were submitted, which only speaks to the level of research and development and the bubbling up of ideas coming up for commercialization and for other parties in the ecosystem to approve and help us commercialize. So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do in touching and building up this ecosystem. And I know that there's work that the CSIR does, especially in the energy storage, touching many research institutions and also World Bank and the universities in this regard. And I would also impart in closure caution and encourage that a little bit more, to say, let us use the ecosystem that's there. Let's partner with the universities, let's partner with entrepreneurs, let's partner with the industry at wide, and see what we can do to put the industry forward. And I really feel very strongly that we need to put thoughts into place to ensure that there is a viable mining industry in 2030. If you look at the work that Sitsi and the team did at the Minerals Council in the leading up to the 2015 mining of Hakisa, you will see that if we do nothing, this industry is going to dissipate in about 2033, especially when it comes to PGMs and gold. So it just puts a lot of emphasis on us as people who are playing in this industry to make sure that we do not drop this baton that has been passed to us, but that we make sure that through research and development, we advance this industry and make sure that our kids can actually be proud of what we've left behind. Thanks, Bongi.
Thank you, Sitle. You are right. Our generations are going to hold us to account as to what did we do. And I think it's important for us to really be agile, as Sita mentioned. It's an opportunity for us to have urgency in terms of what we're doing and driving a national plan that will see mining being revitalized. So thank you for that. Bernard, in closing?
Yeah, I will continue to sit in the pavilion and give advice. So apologies for that. I would do 2 specific things if I was the CSIR, and especially the cluster within the CSIR focusing on mining. I would have regular open days. I would re-show what you are currently doing. I would invite people like, not me, but people who are still actively on the field, and make sure they know what skills you've got. I would also be bold enough to put together an industry advisory group. People who are actually currently on the field to give you advice on what to focus. Again, not old people like me, but the young people like the rest of the panel. I would focus on 4 specific areas if I was the CSIR. And Sisle has mentioned some of them, and Sita has touched on some of them. I would unashamedly be the world leader in clean coal, because we are going to mine coal, and we do need to mine coal. And so why don't we do that cleaner? Whatever in clean coal technology, we should be a world leader out of necessity. I would unashamedly focus on the whole hydrogen space. We are uniquely positioned to be world leaders there. I would fully support any effort in energy storage. It is the disruptor, and none of us know what's going to win We all talk our book, but in the end, we need to be positioning. We happen to be naturally endowed with all the minerals required for that. And then finally, and this is the miner in me, I think we need to continue to work on what I would call remote operating of equipment, remove people away from the workplace. There's no reason why you can't sit in a ventilated, well-ventilated, air-conditioned office wherever you choose and operate a piece of equipment anywhere in the world, wherever you choose. Just look what NASA and SpaceX and others do. So why don't we do that? Now, those areas should keep you all out of mischief, and it should really keep you busy. So I think that should be enough for the next year as an agenda, Bongi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard. Just comment from the viewers, they're saying, that is a very great and very inspirational. So thank you very much. Lastly, Sitze.
Yeah, also from my side, a belated birthday wish. I just want to mention to the CSIR that the Minerals Council is 151 years old this year. So there must be some learnings in our collaboration. So congratulations. But I think the important thing, if you look at what the CSIR, the new strategy says, where they want to touch lives through innovation. I mean, you're only going to be able to touch lives if you're able to engage with all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. That is critically important. And I mean, we've heard some very practical ideas of how you can actually go about that. I think the opportunities that you have, if we take something like the remote working that has been mentioned by Bernard, the skills that we require for that is going to be completely different from what the skills that people currently have. And so when one looks at this and you look at it in a holistic way, you need to look at those skills as well. And there are wonderful technologies that are already available and that can be expanded to actually make sure that people are properly upskilled for work in mining, or alternatively be reskilled for works in other sectors of other sectors of the country. I mean, I think what amazes me about the COVID-19 situation, with all the tragedy that came with it, if you look at the lives lost and the livelihoods lost and so on, there is also a tremendous amount of opportunities that has come out of it. And there's no question in my mind that this is actually going to accelerate innovation, not only in mining, but globally. And we better get with that curve. And I think we've got some wonderful examples. If you look, Kumba Iron Ore, when they had to start doing the COVID-19 screening, they had to reduce their entry time from 4 hours to less than half an hour. And they only be able to do that through technology. Seriti, they came up with an app through which they would engage with the employees. They're a fairly new company. They got an 80% take-up. And every week, the CEO would send a 3-minute inspirational message. Now, those are the kind of things that are possible with technology. Pre-COVID-19, these kind of things would just not have happened so fast. So we're living in a very, very exciting time. There is plenty of these opportunities, and it's really for us to actually make the best of those ones. As I said at the beginning, mining is inseparable from how we as human beings, touched, our lives being touched, as the CSIR slogan said. We can build a socially just world, and we can keep within the ecological limits, whether that is through clean coal, whether it is through vanadium, fuel cells. All of those possibilities are open to us. And if we use innovation to enable a more modern mining sector, South Africa will become more globally competitive. And very important for us is to actually attract the best talent that there is in the country, so that we can contribute more and for longer as we reimagine mining, our whole economy, and also society in its totality. Thank you, Bongi.
Thank you very much. I think, I cannot thank you enough for such a inspirational and educational discussion. And I think for me, most importantly, this is free consultation, because this is something that we need so much. And we're getting it, from this discussion today, and you're offering to give us those free recommended advisory action plan that we need. So thank you very much. I'll now tend to the questions that are coming from our viewers, and I encourage more questions to please pose to our panelists. So I have one question from Johan Stradom. Johan is asking, given the limited R&D funding, it is important that we work together. So coming to Sitle's discussion and point, that we work together in the interest of the nation. What can be done to foster Team South Africa approach and drive synergies amongst the local mining R&D organizations, including science councils, universities, mining companies, and equipment suppliers? Can I pose that, starting with Bernard, to the rest of the panel?
Yeah, I do think this is where the national leadership is important. Our president should paint a picture of the future that we all want to sign up for. And as silly as that sounds, is once that is in place, then the rest of us actually find ways to take hands and to go to this better future together. I think this is leadership 101. I don't think this is complicated. I think on the ground right now, there are some good examples. I do think the Mandela Mining Precinct is a place of collaboration. I think there is sharing of information. We can later compete. Once we've got breakthrough technology, in the commercialization process, yes, then we can compete. But if you think of, and I think it is a venture by Anglo Platinum, the AP Ventures, private equity directed at hydrogen technology research. What an excellent example. Now, we are not going to see other platinum companies duplicating that or competing with that. I'm hoping for mature leadership where we actually pool our resources together and bring other people, international money into that and collaborate. So I think lots of opportunity for collaboration. And as I've said earlier, I think this is where the CSIR can bring in that OEM money that perhaps is not so easy to bring in through other things. So I fully agree with that approach. Let's bring all the money together and let's focus on the areas where we can make unique contributions.
Thanks for that. So the challenge is leadership. How do we as leaders, and I'm speaking to myself, ensure this collaboration, facilitate this collaboration to ensure that we become agile and, stop talking, but more implementation. Sihle?
Bongi, I think I agree with what Bernard has said about leadership, and it's leadership across different government departments, but also in organizations as well. If you look at, and I will make an example that's quite close to me, the operations Pakisa. I believe, maybe because I was there, that we achieved a lot of great things in Operations Pakisa. If you look at the Nelson Mandela Precinct is also an outcome of the work that was done by the mining Pakisa. But I think the lack of collaboration even between the government institutions even led to that work never being pronounced and never being declared in the public. So I think that leadership goes beyond just the president, but I think even within the governmental institutions, there needs to be an SA Inc. Mindset that the different government institutions take on board so that we can move the country forward. and also in us as the mining sector, there are a lot of things that are uncomfortable to us, and I think uncomfortable because that's not how we operated before, and there are a lot of stakeholders that have very deep-seated divergent views. If you look at the neighbor, the small and the mid and the large mining companies, there's different views, but I think there's a lot that we agree on than what we don't agree on. I think everybody agrees that we need a mining sector that moves forward. And if we create those platforms where we don't just talk and there isn't action, but if there's a plan, if there's a master plan that has been put in place for something, let us put action behind what we have put together, because in that way we'll be able to gain credibility even with our stakeholders.
Thanks for that, Sihle. I think you've driven the point home, that the lack of collaboration and that collaboration element across different institutions to ensure that we are all singing from the same hymn, with the national strategic focus being part of our plan. So given the time, I've received other questions, and I'd like to pose another question to you, Sitze. This comes from Rian Berg, and he's asking, the fact that we seem to be lagging behind in modernizing, specifically for South African companies, as compared to other global mining players, looking specifically at underground mining operations. So what he's asking is, what has prevented SA mining operations from modernizing more? And what are the key success factors that will enable successful application of technology to modernize our industry?
Thank you very much for that question. I want to first of all challenge the notion that we are not innovative, and that we're not being progressing and modernizing as an industry. To get the things out of the ground from those difficult conditions is a mammoth task. And so a lot of the time, the mining companies are not innovative out of choice, but purely out of necessity. They have to be innovative to bring the goods to the surface. So that is the first reality that I think we need to just, try and get on the same page in terms of that there is a tremendous amount of innovation. It may not be in the shape and size that we used to see in other mining companies. However, coming to some of the opportunities here, I mean, I've been engaging with a number of CEOs, specifically looking at the gold and the platinum sector, and been asking about the Mandela Mining Precinct and the areas that they're currently focusing on. And I mean, there was complete support that the gold and platinum, the chrome, the narrow reef, deep level mining, that remains an absolute burning platform. Now, what I think one needs to look at as like the CSIR is to look at those business improvement opportunities. Because the one challenge that we have as a mining industry and also as a country is to put new money into modernization. There is not a lot of discretionary funds around. And that's where I think one needs to look at what are the opportunities. I mean, I mentioned some of those in my examples in my opening remarks on your first question. I mean, if you can get a 20% improvement in drill rate, that can be a very significant return that you can actually get into that. And instead of just looking at the blue sky things and the things that will make the dramatic improvements, which is also stuff that we can look at, but these are the immediate opportunities. And if we can get some of those quick wins and those quick runs on the board and get more excitement and understanding amongst the mining companies that The CSIR, the universities, the Mandela Mining Precinct is not just about getting a number of PhDs or getting master's degrees and so on. That is actually seeking solutions that the industry is desperately needing. That is where I think will be a very, very good starting point, because I think then it's going to be much easier to get people at your open day if you're going to show solutions that really make a difference. And again, this is not rocket science. I mean, if you look at what the Mandela Mining Precinct did with the rock roll, I mean, the rock roll has been the same for decades. And by collaborating and saying as different mining companies, what is our expectation in terms of a rock roll? It opened up a lot of opportunities for suppliers and other companies to come up and say, let's try something different. And I mean, the expectations from the mining companies were high. They asked, for instance, to half the weight, you know, to dramatically reduce the noise levels, to increase the drill speeds. But there are new drills today that are being tested at Impala through the Mandela Mining Precinct. And those are those 20% opportunities that I think we need to seek out. And that will, I think, bring excitement, it will be enthusiasm, and in time, it will also bring money. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Sitze. So as you were saying, as you were just rounding off, I got a message from Lebo to say that, you know, our time is up. So thank you very much to the panelists. There are a couple of questions that I didn't get to, which I will send, but I think, you know, you have given us a lot of nuggets for us to take away in us being leaders in ensuring collaboration across the various institutions and the agility that we need to bring forth in implementing the solutions. Sita spoke now about, you know, looking at business improvement opportunities. So how then do we bring improvements, stepwise improvements to modernization? And you know, a number of nuggets that we got in terms of the roadmap, you know, the how, open days, ensuring that we collaborate, bringing in new, fresh ideas, you know, employing fresh minds, young people into organizations that will ensure that we've got that diversity. And as we know, diversity fuels innovation. So thank you very much to our panelists. And the session, I think, has not only been fruitful to me, but to our organization as we move forward.